Alright, hello everyone and welcome to AEW Discussion. I'm your host of AEW Tuesdays, Dougie Doug. In today's episode, we're going to be discussing Dynamite, August 2nd, 2023 edition. But this wasn't just any ordinary episode of Dynamite, no, this was special 200th episode of Dynamite. So, All Elite Wrestling has made it to episode 200 of Dynamite. Congrats to them on that. It's been a pretty good run for AEW, and they're not slowing down anytime soon. And with that, we'll go ahead and get right into the action, starting with Chris Jericho and Takeshita versus Sammy Guevara and Danny Garcia. So late in the match, Don Callis would interject himself and blast Garcia with a baseball bat, setting up the finish and pretty much allowing Jericho to take the win and score the pin and take the win. But Jericho certainly did question it, and he certainly did hesitate, but he still went through with taking the win. It remains to be seen whether Jericho will fully commit to the Don Callis family. This wasn't the segment that exactly confirmed that. But Daddy Magic Matt Menard would later tell Jericho that there is a mandatory JAS meeting next week. So when it comes to Jericho's allegiance, sounds like he might have to make a choice next week, or perhaps maybe a decision has been made for him, but that JAS meeting should certainly be an interesting one next week. And then you have an Anything Goes match, Trent Beretta versus Penta, El Zero, and Miro and versus John Moxley. So the action here was non-stop in the match, but the match itself was weighed down by the hardcore wrestling that AEW continues to overdo. And it's not an indictment of that style. I'm not against that style of wrestling. I have nothing against it. I don't mind watching it. But the issue I have is that when it occurs so often, it's not really special anymore. It loses its meaning, and it stops mattering as much as it would if it was used in moderation. Beretta scored a win here, which was certainly a surprise. I thought maybe Moxley would win this match, but it's nice to see a guy like an underrated worker like Beretta get a win here. And after the match, Chuck Taylor would lay out a challenge for a parking lot brawl, which is set for Rampage. So it'll be Moxley and Castiglione versus Taylor and Beretta, which should be fun if for no other reason than it changes things up and creates fresh opportunities for the chaotic style favored by its participants. Gotta give some credit to Penta here too. He certainly looks like he's in great shape right now, perhaps maybe best shape of his career, and he certainly showed out in this match. And then you have a promo from MJF, and it is official: MJF versus Adam Cole for the AEW World Championship, the Triple P. It is set for All In. It is the main event of All In. And Adam Cole, well, he signed the contract, but he didn't read it, so he does raise the question of who betrays who. But the promo segment, great stuff here, and MJF is certainly playing up his new persona, which may or may not be real, complete with a personal story of vulnerability. If there was ever a moment where it appeared as though MJF might be genuine and honest for once, this was it. He came across more likable than he ever has before, to the point that that I think everybody expected him to turn back to his own ways. But he did not do that here. Instead, he made good on his promise to Cole and set up the main event for a show that will likely be the most significant show in AEW history to that point. The question then becomes who betrays who. Like I said, Adam Cole just blindly signed that contract. So has MJF really turned things around? And has he really turned things around? Or will the devil rear his head once again? Or does Adam Cole pull one over? Matt Taven certainly had something to say about Adam Cole and Roderick Strong backstage, so be interesting to see how that. So it's nice that AEW isn't really in a rush with this story. They're still kind of laying things out, so this is good right here. And then the main event of the show, AEW Women's World Championship match, Hikaru Shida versus Toni Storm, and congrats to Shida winning her second title So second now, winning her second title, women's title. And Shida, I think when you think about all the women's champions in AEW, perhaps Shida ranks as the greatest. Ranks as the greatest. And here in the main event, Shida and Storm delivered, producing a quality wrestling match. Shida overcame every attempt from the Outcast to derail her and out-wrestled Storm to net her second championship reign. That moment was well earned, as Shida is not only an underrated talent but has repeatedly proven her excellence in AEW. There was still some issues to be had in this match, mainly centering with the Outcast. This was a group that started, this was a trio that started as a rebellious group meant to shake up the women's division. And an unfortunate injury suffered by Jamie Hayter certainly ruined creative plans, but the company, you still gotta adapt, and it just doesn't seem like they have really adapted very well and advanced the storyline in any way that does, or advance the storyline in a way that helps the group, and instead what was a relatively hot trio has now become a one-dimensional group, relying way too much on ringside interference to define them rather than their original appearance, and as a result they've kind of become stagnant. No matter how good Storm is between the ropes, the trio was unable to sustain momentum, to the point that this loss by Storm, well, it could be the end of the faction. Seems unlikely, but it certainly is a possibility. And it's a shame because the pieces were there for a strong storyline that could finally help the women's division realize its potential. But it feels like the Outcast, Storm wins the championship, she then loses it. That kind of feels like it's it for them. Again, it's unlikely that they actually do disband, but it's certainly something worth talking about. And now, even though Shida is back at the helm as champion, it feels as though the roster is in as great a status quo as it has ever been. But nonetheless, congrats to Shida. She had a great title run, but didn't get to have it in front of the fans. So hopefully this time around she gets to have as good, if not better, title reign, this time with the fans present. So in conclusion, this is a fun show. Quality work and developments up and down throughout the 2-hour runtime. You had the latest in the rivalry between the Mogul Embassy and Darby Allin, which was certainly a great angle that played out. You had a great promo segment from MJF, an appearance from Rob Van Dam, which sets up a match with Jungle Boy over the FTW title, and Chris Jericho's Chris Jericho's moral dilemma that continues, and the effect that it is having on the Jericho Appreciation Society, which has made for some quality television. If there was a downside, it was probably that Anything Goes match. I talked about it being I talked about that match, but you think about Blood and Guts, which was just like a couple weeks ago, and now we're already doing another hardcore match, which honestly it feels like the only reason why you're doing that was so you can have Moxley and Weapons in the same ring, which is a running gag at this point. I seriously do wonder how many people actually care about it. And it's a shame because the effort from the three involved was there, but it was undermined by the reliance on the hardcore shtick that has been continuously overdone by the company. Still, even with that, that wasn't enough to detract from what was a quality celebration of AEW's first 200 episodes of Dynamite at a time when the company is entering what may very well be the most important stretch of its existence. And with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap up this episode of AEW Discussion. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to hit that like button down below.